Good afternoon. One of the issues that has come up over the past couple of days is that of David Lammy, our foreign minister, and the issue of claims for reparations for slavery by the Caribbean nations. Now, I gather that some of them, at least, are asking for something like £200 billion, and that the current head of the Commonwealth favours the payment of reparations. And so, on one of the right-leaning vlogs, I can't remember which one, right-leaning YouTube channels, people were saying that Britain should now walk away from the Commonwealth, which I think would be disastrous, because we would lose our influence in the world and also our trading partners, right? Post-imperial trading partners, I should say. Other right-wing YouTubers have been talking about this. Have put up a thumbnail, you may well have seen it, of a black Caribbean woman holding a sign saying, "You ought to be glad we want reparations, not retribution." Or revenge. Sorry, it's revenge. Now, I think that behind these claims there is a desire for revenge. I think when you're talking about sums as large as 200 billion, there is a desire to attack Britain economically and financially. This is how it seems to me. It may be different. Now, regarding the claims to slavery themselves, the claim for reparation, the claim for reparation appeared first of all in America. I read an article about it in The Observer a long time ago in the 90s, where I think the woman behind it said that she was trying to start a conversation about slavery, because the last people who would have had a connection with their slave ancestors were dying out, and she was afraid that this connection would be lost unless there was some kind of stimulus to get people to look back at the past. This was in the Observer article. I can't tell you how true it is. Now, I am very suspicious about some of the people demanding reparations when it gets to a government level. Some of the countries demanding this are those whose economies have gone down after independence, and this happened a lot. And it seems to me, and there are historians who have put forward this idea, that it's a reaction to the failed expectations of independence. Like in Africa, there were expectations, the independence parties were presenting independence as if it would immediately solve Africa's problems, their country's problems, and their countries would go away from Britain, away from British rule, would immediately prosper. And this didn't happen. In fact, these countries declined, a lot of these countries declined economically. And so, blaming colonialism and British rule is a way of psychologically compensating for this failure and also diverting attention away from the failure of independence. Now, I was looking at one of the Caribbean countries where, demanding reparations, and one of them looks like its government has presided over, again, a failing economy, and there may even be I can't remember accurately, but there may even have been accusations of corruption. And this brings into one of the other issues with this. I think if you start paying out money for reparations, there is going to be a danger that this money will not benefit ordinary citizens. Politicians will hoover it up and put it into their own Swiss bank balances, and that's it. You won't see it. The other issue, I think, is that if you pay it, somebody will decide it's not enough, there's some other grievance, and we want more. If you pay Dane Guild, the Dane will always come back. Another problem is that Britain wasn't the only person. Britain and the other European powers weren't the only people involved in the slave trade. We were sold, generally speaking, we were sold slaves by the African nations. The idea that, yes, slaving expeditions by British and other European slaves and other Western slave ships did happen. But in the majority of cases, the slave ships turned up, and it was African merchants who said, "Do you want to buy African slaves? Here they are." And it was Africans who carried out the slave raids, and it was also the African aristocracy who got extremely rich, apart from the Western countries. Now, if you take this seriously, then the African nations involved in the slave trade who sold us should also be paying compensation to those Caribbean nations. I can't imagine this going down very well, but yeah, there's an argument for it. People have said that if you're talking about reparations, it would be African nations paying the Caribbeans. This is true. And when we tried to stop the slave trade, we did so, again, through military conquest and invasion, but also by paying some of these states subsidies and compensation for the cessation of the slave trade. This is Africa, in the hope that they would start taking up what was termed legitimate trade. They would start trading in other goods, such as palm oil. That was one of the hopes, rather than the trade in human souls. Now, there is some question about David Lammy himself and how impartial he is. Lammy has stood up and referred to, and several times apparently referred to himself as a black person or a Caribbean. He talks about we Caribbeans being transported over the sea. Now, of course, David Lammy is black. I think he came to prominence organising Operation Black Vote, which was to marshal the black community to vote as a collective in order to gain concessions and improvements in their condition. Now, it looks like certain individuals online have asked whether Lammy views himself as black British or whether he views himself as a Caribbean person, in which case, if the latter, will he push for reparations and side with them? It's a complex question. I hope that Mr. Lammy is impartial and ultimately makes the right decision. As for reparations, Thomas Sowell, the American Conservative, has attacked the idea. And one of his points is that the people who should be compensated, the slaves themselves, they're all dead. They're beyond anything we can do for them. And there are other issues involved. If you're going to pay, I would say that if you're going to pay the Caribbean nations reparations of slavery, in order to stop it being just hoovered up by their politicians, and I might be underestimating their honesty here, but I don't think I am. there should be strings attached. There should be strings that say you have to invest it in your economy, and so much must be spent in these, in these sectors, and that, there has to be proper oversight. Anyway, this is just my view on it. I shall wish you a good afternoon, and thanks for watching.